Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? Happy Saturday. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. It has been a fantastic weekend for me. I've done no work. I've been home. It was rainy and wet last night, and this morning actually when I walked the dogs about 6. But then it turned sunny and beautiful outside. We took Berkeley for a long walk. We took Baxter on a car ride. We took Blanche on our own adventure. I was able to finish a book, my buddy read with Jacqueline of No More Boats, which I will definitely be telling you guys about in a read and reviewed video. So it has been a very nice day. Now I've been reorganizing books, calling books, and getting ready to do a video with you guys. So there you go. Today's video is actually pretty exciting because I'm going to be sort of championing books that have come out so far in 2019 that I am super, super excited about, that I've read and I've been giving to people, buying for people, handing out, recommending across the board. So all of these books have come out in January, February, or March. A couple of them come out at the end of March, I do believe, but I'm sneaking them in there because it's sort of a first quarter wrap up. It was really hard to get this down to 10 books. I have to be honest. I almost had 12. There are 2 books that just were there on the edge, but I have talked about them a lot on my channel, so I chose not to put them in this 10 list. And I think I'm going to regret it, but that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes we can't talk about all the books we love in one video. So this is 10 books that have come out in 2019. I've read all of them but one. I'll tell you about that one in a minute. And I am super excited to share them with you. Now, get out your pen, get out your paper, get out your Goodreads. If you haven't already ordered these or put them on your list, get them from your independent bookstore, get them from your library. I'm promising you all of them are vastly different, but really worth your time. I've organized them in the months that they've come out, so I should get started or this video is going to be super long. The first book that came out in January, as I drop it, is We Cast a Shadow by Maurice Carlos Ruffin. Maurice, I really need you to come to California so I can meet you and get my book signed. I don't know why more people haven't read this because I think it is a brilliant novel. This is a racial satire set slightly askew of our current timeline. Racism is one of those things that is just blatantly inundated throughout culture and society. Our main character is a black man that is unnamed who is married to a white woman with a mixed race son. The premise of the story is that he wants to become a partner in a law firm so that he can earn enough money to have a procedure done for his son that would change the color of his skin to white so that he would not have to deal with the racial implications of being a mixed man in this culture. What is fascinating about this book is that his strive to become a partner and what the partnership in the attorney firm uses him for as a black man is really the same reason that he's trying to get away. They want him as a token black man in their ranks. He wants to get away from that and he wants to actually change the course of his son. I had a real struggle with the main character in that I knew exactly what his motivation was and my sort of sensibility on it. But he at times was very unlikable, even though he was driven by a love for his son, some of his decisions, some of the things he does. This book is thought-provoking, beautifully written, fantastically executed, and so just perfect for right now that you will not stop thinking about it once you have finished reading it. And I have not. I have told 100,000 people to get this book. So We Cast a Shadow by Maurice Carlos Ruffin in one cover. Oh, so beautiful. I was thinking of doing a video of just beautiful covers, and that book would definitely be in that video. The next book that I'm going to tell you about is actually a reissue from Small Beer Press, and that is Fire Logic by Laurie J. Marks. Now, this is a fantasy series. It is 4 books that Small Beer Press is reissuing that you guys know I have been reading a lot more fantasy lately than I used to in my I used to read it all the time in junior high. Got really away from it and really inspired by my friend Chris at Chris's Bookish Cauldron, Mercedes at Mercedes Musings, Jean at Jean's Bookish Thoughts, to really encourage myself to enjoy fantasy more, and this is one that I absolutely loved. This is the story of a world where a country is overtaken after the death of the monarch, and really is being savaged by this other this other people. God, that was not very eloquent at all. I apologize. We have our main character. She actually is the member of a small group of people that live up in the mountains, where she actually comes into the mainland in order just to make sure that her people are kept safe. But what happens is she winds up becoming part of sort of a trio of people that are trying to change the scope and the course of the country in which they live. I don't want to give too much away, because this is one of those books where the world building and the plot are just so perfectly intertwined that you never feel like it's all world building and you get lost in that. The main character is a strong female. She's got queer representation, which is really well done throughout the book. We have she has decided that she is going to defend this other character who, in my head, if you guys watch Game of Thrones on TV and you know who Brianna of Tarth is, that actress was in my head this other character who is this. There are different types of magic. She has this earth magic, and that woman who plays her, which I don't know the actress's name, I apologize, but that is who I pictured. Fire logic is a type of magic where they really sort of can intune the future and or work sort of out logically what things are going to happen. It is an adventure tale. It is a great cast of characters. I was hooked from the beginning and just flew through it. I need to email Small Beer Press and figure out how I can get a copy of the next one, because I absolutely loved Fire Logic by Laurie J. Marks. There you go. The next book is another sort of, I'm going to say fantasy, sort of urban fantasy book that was sent to me by Tor, and that is The Haunting of Tramcar 15 by P. Dejeli Clark. Okay. This is set in 1912 Cairo, and this is the story of two men who belong to a unit that is around just to investigate the supernatural and things that go on in that world. It's called the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities. They are called to a tram car that is supposedly being haunted by a ghost in order to get the ghost out so that the tram car could be used again. But it's never that simple. A mixture of different types of folklore and also a mixture of just plain old fantastic adventure fantasy. This story is the two men as they try to figure out where this ghost came from, what the sort of implications of that are. We get these jinn that are sort of in part of the culture and have this magic. We get, I don't know, it's so good, you guys. I don't even know how to really explain it. But basically, as they continue to investigate, the world continues to be fleshed out, and there's all sorts of interesting side stories, great, fantastic characters. And for a novella, which Tor rocks the novella, I was bought in. I tweeted the author immediately after that I want more stories with these two main characters. And there's actually a sub-character, Agent Fatma, I want to say is her name, that just has just a few line pages in this whole entire book that was so interesting that I want a whole book about her. I think it was great. So that is The Haunting of Tramcar 15 by P. Dejeli Clark. And this is out now, and it is worth every second. Promise. The next book is actually kind of fun. This is the arc of it, and this is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. He is a Greek author. He was born in Cyprus. Him and I are the same age, so there you go. This is a thriller novel about a woman. At the very first part of the book, she is convicted of shooting her husband and killing him 5 times. What we have is she has been put into a mental institution / facility because she stopped speaking once the act happened. Our other main character is a doctor who gets himself hired because he's fascinated with the story of her, and gets himself hired into her unit in order to see if he can help have her speak again. It's never that easy. What we have is really 3 stories. The story of what happened to cause her to shoot her husband. We have the doctor and what's going on in his life. His wife is, he believes, cheating on him, and he is investigating that. And then also we have the journals of this woman as she explains how she got to the point where the sort of action happens. Now, what's interesting is I actually gave a copy of this book to my boss, who is not a reader by trade, and he said, you know what, you should give me a book. And I was like, okay. And I gave him this book. And he told me he almost read The Silent Patient in one day. He really would have if life hadn't intervened. It took him one weekend and he was absolutely hooked. So there you go. If that is not a recommendation, it was a fun, fantastic, edge of your seat thriller, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Sometimes I wish that I could just push a button and say people's names by a computer, because I'm horrible at it. We are moving on to February, where we're going to talk about The Last Romantics by Tara Conklin. I loved this book. Set in the future to start, we have a woman who is 102 years old. She is a poet, a world-renowned poet, who is sort of giving the last lecture on her poetry. There is something going on in the future. Clearly, we're in a police state. She lives, you find out, on sort of this remote farm where she is sort of caged in. At the end of her event, a young woman comes up to ask about the name Luna at the end of her most famous poem. She believes, this young woman, that Luna was actually a person. And the poet decides to tell her, yes, but to get to Luna, you must know the story of my family. And so we go back into the time where she was a young girl. She is the youngest of 4 children. She has 1 older brother and 2 older sisters. And we get sort of the story of how she becomes the poet that she is. The Last Romantic is the play on a blog that she writes about the men that she hooks up with, which was very, very interesting. And we learn about each of the children too. The oldest sister, what happens at the very start of the book, and the start of the family story, is the father has passed away. The mother has to take over. They have to move out of their house. The mother goes through her own sort of mental illness, mental breakdown, and the oldest daughter has to take over raising the children. All of the children go on different adventures, but always their lives are sort of intertwined. They all take different paths to where they're going. This is at 1, a family saga. This is at 2, a fantastic story about how you create art out of your own history. And then also you add into it this idea that in the back of your head that something is going on in the world that the poet is telling the story in, which I thought added a sense of tension that would not have been there otherwise. I really love this book. I cannot stop thinking about it. And I cannot stop thinking about Joe, who is the brother, that I won't tell you anymore. I don't want to spoil it. But I want to tell you to go read right now The Last Romantics by Tara Conklin. It is absolutely worth it. I don't know why I'm saying that. I'm telling you to read all of these books because they're all fantastic. But there you go. So this book is The Other Americans by Laila Lalami. I've talked about this book a lot because I think it is fantastic. It does not have this cover. The official cover is this. This is the story of a Moroccan family that settles in the Mojave Desert of California. At the very start of the book, the patriarch is involved in a hit-and-run pedestrian accident when he's killed. This causes the youngest daughter to return to the Mojave Desert and really face a bunch of things about herself. Now, she is a musician by trade. There you go. That was a bunch of whatever that is. But also substitute teacher by day. She comes home. Her sister is a dentist, the more successful. The mother dealing with the loss of her husband, but also sort of always that dynamic of the family, the mom, the pressure. We also get introduced to a number of characters in the community. A boy that the main character, I want to say her name is Nora. Nora goes to school with. They get involved in a relationship, and it's whether or not she really even needs that or wants that relationship. He is back from war, and he has his own sort of things. And there's just so many great characters in this book, but it also is one of those things where it's a bunch of sort of stories about people that intertwine to complete a narrative. As our sort of the main driving force is who hit the patriarch, who hit the father, and why did they flee the scene? So there's all of that. There's a police officer that's great. Her family is great. She's investigating it. It's really good. So that's The Other American by Laila Lalami, and this is out now, and I highly, highly recommend it. So good. Okay, getting to the book. Actually, no. One more book that's out, and that is If Then by Kate Hope Day. This is sort of a science fiction-y book. I have talked about it a number of times, but it is officially out now. And I know that Kate Hope Day is on her tour. So if you get a chance to see her, I think I'm going to try to see her in May. I think she's coming to California. Actually, I may try to see her more towards her hometown when I'm in Oregon in June. Set in a little town in Oregon, what has happened is a group of characters have started to be able to see alternate dimensions where they see what their life would be like if they had made different choices. That causes them in their current life to sort of reevaluate what's going on. This book has that sci-fi element where they definitely are looking into another world, seeing things and making choices. But this is really about relationships with not only with other people, but within yourself and how you decide who you're going to be, even though you've sort of already made decisions that have dictated who you are currently. There's a doctor character who is married with a son who finds out that maybe she made the wrong choice in partner. We have a man, the father, the husband, who sees a world where something happens and he feels he needs to protect his family, so he makes a decision that way. We have a young girl a woman actually, who's lost her mother and has returned to town and hasn't chosen to leave yet and doesn't know what she exactly wants in her life. At times it seems like these people are able to go between the worlds, but really you need to know, who are you? And what Kate Hope Day is amazing is you don't know which sort of the world you're in until you keep going and it sort of makes itself known to you. This was a fast, interesting, fantastic read about people and choices and family. I really loved it. If then, Kate Hope Day, please go get a copy. It is out now. Okay, two books that are not out quite yet. One is The Library of Lost and Found by Phaedra. I just talked about this in a read and review. This book made me bawl my eyes out. This is the story of Martha Storm, who is a woman who works in a library, who returned home late in life to take care of her aging and dying parents, and then just really became one of those people that just says yes to everything everybody needs and never really says yes to what she needs. One day she is sort of gifted a book that is missing some of the front pages, but it is said to have been written by her grandmother with an inscription to her that is dated 3 years after she believed her grandmother had died. And what happens is she goes on sort of this investigative adventure to figure out what happened. Why was she told her grandmother died? And did her grandmother really die? And who created this book? I should say the book is full of fairy tales and stories that the grandmother and her used to tell each other. So yeah, this is really a story about a woman and her grandmother, which I had to absolutely love. I teared up a number of times, but it's really about Martha's own sense of self and who she wants to be now that she realizes she doesn't have to be what other people need from her. I absolutely loved it. Totally loved it. You guys know I loved it. If you are looking for something just to sit down, lose yourself in, cry a little, smile a little, this is the book for you. The Library of Lost and Found by Phaedra. Awesome. This book actually comes out, I want to say late March, it may be early April, so it actually doesn't quite fit into this, but I have to remind all of my US readers that Women Talking by Marian Toews is coming out, and I need you to read it. It's so good. The story of 8 Mennonite women and their decision on what they're going to do once it's found that a group of men have been drugging and raping themselves and or the children of the community. This book blew my freaking mind. It's the first book I read in 2019, and I cannot stop talking about it. Told from the perspective of the women as one man, because the women in the Mennonite community cannot read or write and cannot speak any language other than the German dialect that their community speaks. A man who was once an outcast and brought him to teach English to the boy students writes down the conversations that these women are having as a record, as a historical record. And the decision is this: do you stay where you're comfortable and where you know? Do you forego what your religion teaches you to go out into the real world where you don't even really know where you are? I read an article that was Mairam talking about the fact that these women exist and that she could have been one of these women from her upbringing, which it's just sort of this powerful statement in and of itself. This book just will set you on edge, but it's also really hopeful as the women determine how they're going to make choices for their own life. So this is actually probably out in April. I apologize it's a little bit late, but I just can't stop talking about Women Talking by Miriam Toews. It's so good. Last but not least is the book I told you that I haven't read, but it is out, and that is Gingerbread by Helen Oyeyemi. I saw Helen Oyeyemi in an author event here in California, and she was phenomenal. This is her retelling of the Gingerbread Hansel and Gretel story. I heard her read part of it, and it was fantastic. And I'm going to sort of read to you guys what it's about, because, yeah. Perdita Lee may appear your average British schoolgirl. Harriet Lee may seem just a working mother trying to penetrate the school social hierarchy, but there are signs that they might not be as normal as they think they are. For one thing, they share a gold-painted 7th-floor walk-up apartment with some surprisingly verbal vegetation. And then there's the gingerbread they bake. Londoners who find themselves able to take or leave it, but it's very popular in, I cannot say this name of this city, the faraway or according to many sources, non-existent land of Harriet Lee's early youth. The world's truest lover of the Lee family gingerbread, however, is Harriet's charismatic childhood friend, Gretel, a figure who seems to have had a hand in everything good or bad that has happened to Harriet since they met. Decades later, teenage Perdita searches for her mother's long-lost friend, prompts a new telling of Harriet's story. As the book follows the Lees through encounters with jealousy, ambition, family grudges, work, wealth, and real estate, gingerbread seems to be the one thing that reliably holds a constant value. Endlessly surprising and satisfying, written with Helen Oyeyemi's inimitable style and imagination, Gingerbread is a true feast for readers. She read a section of this, and I absolutely was like, I need to read this book. So there you go. Gingerbread by Helen Oyeyemi. It is out now. You guys can get your copy, and I highly recommend it because, yeah, I can't wait to read it myself. So that is 10 books that are coming out in 2019, or actually all of them have come out in 2019, except for one, which comes out in April, sorry, that I want to make sure that you guys have on your radar that you've read, or you're going to read, or you're going to have your library. Get them from your independent bookstore. However you must get a hold of your books, please do it. As always, if you're a return subscriber, I thank you so very, very much. If you are new to my channel, I appreciate it. I hope you like what you see and you come along for another video. As always, I wish you happy reading, and until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye!